Hello, everyone. Welcome to Digging Deeper with Robin Coward. My name is Robin, and I'm delighted to be with you this evening. I'm delighted to be inviting a guest. We are going to be talking this evening about manifesting miracles. It's miracle season. It's the season of Hanukkah. Today is actually December the 14th of 2022, and our Hebrew date is Kislev 225783. I like to keep track of the Hebrew date, and we know that we're on the countdown now to Erev Hanukkah. We are just 3 days away. So let's talk about miracles. And my subtitle, as you can see on the screen here, is Mistakes to Miracles. In Hebrew, the word for miracle is nes. You can see that on the right side of the screen, the nun and a samech. Nes means actually in Hebrew, miracle, or it really in scripture, it appears and is often translated more often as the word for banner, which is very significant. When we play the dreidel game, we have the 4 letters on the dreidel, and those say a great miracle happened there if you live outside the land, but if you live inside the land, it's a great miracle happened here. So in Israel, when you play the dreidel game, instead of they have a letter pay for po. A great miracle happened here. Nes gadol hayasham is how we say that in Hebrew, or nes gadol haya po. You've heard the expression major on the minor, which is what some people like to do, but we say major on the miracles. I hope that you are experiencing miracles in your life. And perhaps after this evening's interview with my precious mother, you will have an even greater emphasis on miracles in your life and more so the eyes to see miracles. I think it takes eyes to see them. I have asked my mother to join us, and I have quite a few reasons that I would like her to join us. But one of the reasons I asked her is because she is a woman of miracles. Our family has experienced so many wonderful opportunities in the Lord and serving the Lord and being in his service. And we have just had, we have wonderful stories to tell, lots of stories, of course, because we've lived a long time. So this is going to be a short little part and glimpse into some things that Mother has experienced. My mother is Beatrice Hesley, and she's a delightful example of a woman of wisdom. She is an amazing example of a woman who builds. She's an encourager. She's a holy woman, and she has some wonderful ways about talking about miracles and gratitude. Would you please welcome with me an amazing lady in waiting for our bridegroom, my own mother, Beatrice Hesley. Is she there yet, Annie? Mother, say hello if you're here with us.
Hello.
There she is. Okay, wonderful. I thank you. I couldn't see you there for a moment. So, hi, Mom.
Hi.
Mother's in Michigan and I'm in Oklahoma City. So Mother and I usually talk on the telephone right about this time of an evening. So this is really just part of our routine to call each other up on the phone. And with modern technology, we get to see each other, which is really quite lovely. Mom, you have a special way of introducing miracles and talking about miracles. I texted you that today and asked you if you could remember how that goes, and maybe you could share with us your special phrase that you have for that.
Well, it was given to me when our daughter was brought back to us, at the time of Hanukkah, and I wrote it down because miracles need to be polished. They need to be protected. They need to be perfected and preserved with prayer. And they must never be allowed to become tainted or tarnished.
That is so beautiful. And the story about my sister coming back, maybe we'll get to share that another time. I really hope that we do get to share that story because it's a miracle story too. And she was lost to our family, just as a side note for those who are listening. As a side note, our sister was disappeared from our family for 28 years. And she came back to us on a Hanukkah a number of years ago. So certainly that's one of our miracles that we love to talk about and we love to share. So what is a miracle? Well, is a nace, we have already said, which is a banner. And a banner is something that points the way, something that shows us, it encourages us, it helps us to see the way home, shall we say, the home to the kingdom. But I do want to share with you what Art Scroll in the Stone edition says. It's on page 319, and that's where they're discussing the names of God. They're here discussing the name El Shaddai, and it says that Ramban, and that's Rabbi Ben Nachmanides, that's an acronym for Rabbi Nachmanides. And then sometimes you'll see Rambam, it ends with an M, and that's Rabbi Ben Maimonides. So there's a distinction there, and I just want to make sure that you understand that this is Rabbi Ben Nachmanides, and he contends that El Shaddai describes God when he performs miracles that do not openly disrupt the normal course of nature. This was the way the patriarchs perceived God when he assured their survival in times of famine, made them victorious over physically superior enemies, and gave them extraordinary success in amassing wealth. Though miraculous, none of the above openly violated the laws of nature. And then the commentary goes on to discuss that during Moses' time, as he's taking the children of Israel out of Egypt and then into the desert, that they did, of course, see many miracles that defied nature. A miracle can be something that appears to be natural, as we just learned from that remark from Art Scroll, but it can also be supernatural. And I like to say that in our family, we like to live supernaturally. I hope that you do too, but I know that Mother has great eyes to see into the supernatural. Now, Mother is called Mother Joy, and I'm going to share with you why we call her Mother Joy. First of all, her first name is Beatrice, which means joy. Her middle name is Joy, so she is Beatrice Joy. And believe it or not, her maiden name is Albright. So she is Beatrice Joy, and she is Albright. So my mother has truly, the way you see her on camera tonight, that is how my mother is. And that is how she has been my whole life. When I was a youngster, I would often say to her, not often, excuse me, when she was not smiling, which was not very often, I would say, Mama, why aren't you smiling? Because she was so joyful. She was filled with joy. But there's another reason that she got her name, Mother Joy. When I was a little girl, we would go to the Manton Free Methodist Campground in Manton, Michigan. And you can see pictures here of the campground. The picture on the left is actually our little campground cottage where we would stay for 2 weeks during the camp meeting. So I was about 6 or 7, 6, 7, 8, 5, 6, 7, 8, right in those years. And the campground, as you can see, the cottages were quite close together. And people enjoyed visiting. We would go from cottage to cottage. We would enjoy visiting, being with everyone. And during that time, Mother would allow the children to just go play because we were in a safe and protected environment. Well, all of a sudden, I would look up from my play and realize my mother was not to be seen. And for some reason, all of a sudden, I would just get lonesome for her. I just needed my mother. So I would go running through the campground shouting, Mother, Mother. And then in my little analytical mind, I realized that there were many mothers on the campground. And so any mother could answer me. So I needed a special name for my mother. Since her middle name was Joy, I called her Mother Joy. And from that time until now, she is known as Mother Joy. And we have become known as the Joy family to some of our friends. And we're nicknamed the Joy family. So my father became Papa Joy. This happened as a friend of ours nicknamed us Papa Joy, and my brother is Maddie Joy, and so on. So, Mother, we are delighted to have you here. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the years before Manton. I want to talk about what happened in some of those years before we were serving the Lord and attending campgrounds. Let's go back a few years. My computer screen doesn't want to advance here, so let me try a little different direction over there. There we go. There is a picture of you and Dad, and you were an 18-year-old waitress. And tell us what happened.
Well, I waited on your dad. He came in and he was dashingly handsome. And he ordered a cup of coffee on his way to work. And when I served it to him, he looked up at me and said, "Hi, Angel, I'm going to marry you someday."
And did he? How many years were you married?
Well, I had to prove to him first that I was really and truly 18 years old and he could date me.
And how old was he?
He was 29.
He was 29. 12, almost 13 years difference?
Yes, I met him in January. His birthday was in January. He was 29 and I was 18 in September. So there was 11 years between us. And then before the next year passed around, he got to be 30. So
okay. So how long before you got married from that initial meeting?
We met in January, shortly around his birthday, and we were married in August, just before my 19th birthday.
Just before your 19th. So you were kind of a baby.
Yes, I really was.
And
I didn't think so.
But you didn't think so. You thought you were all grown up until after you were married. Tell me how those first few months and weeks went after you married him.
Well, we were married in August, and then and it wasn't very long after we were married when we went to Grayling on our honeymoon for the first 2 weeks. I realized that my dad had been right. It wasn't a good idea for me to marry a man that much older than I, who was at that time a confirmed alcoholic. I didn't know what that meant. My dad came home from work on Friday nights and maybe he'd have a couple beers before he cashed his check and go to sleep on the couch. But that isn't what an alcoholic does. And it's drinking all weekend. And if you have time to go to work, fine. But that anniversary time, 2 weeks in Grayling, was an eye-opener. And I knew that my dad was right. I really had made quite a mistake. And so I decided to go home and tell my dad that I had made a mistake and he was right. And he had to do something about this. He had to get me out of this mistake I'd made. And when I got home, my dad and mom had, because of their hearts breaking at what I had done, they had gone to visit my sister. So I went home to an empty house. But I went upstairs and stood in the front of my graduation gift from my brother and sister, which was a walnut bedroom outfit with a great big mirror. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I really gave myself a talking to. And I said, "You have made your bed, little girl, you sleep in it," literally. And I said a lot of other things and I listened. And I went back to Grayling. And I lived by what I told myself for the next year before grailing another year. We had a pretty rough first year as married people. Young married couples often do, getting adjusted. There were lots of things that happened during that year, but when we went back to grailing the next year, in that year's time, I said to one of the ladies older than me, how do you deal with liking or loving? I would get so, if he was drunk, I would feel like I just almost hated him. And I didn't want to hate him. I loved him. And what do I do to overcome that? And she said, honey, what you need to do is drink along with him, and then it won't bother you so much when he drinks. Well, she was older than I was, and she'd lived a lot longer than I had. And I thought I could try that. So I did. So for the first 2 or 3 years, I drank along with him. And then we went to grailing, and I was drunk. He was drunk. Don't know how we got from the bar back to our bed in the Water's Inn. But in the morning when we woke up and realized what had taken place, he looked at me and he said, I think you better go home and talk to the preacher and make an appointment for us to meet with him and see what we can do about our lives. We can't continue to live like this. So I did. And we did. We made our confession. He took us in as members. But when George went out on the back porch one morning, he said we had been invited to a revival meeting with some friends from the Methodist Church after we joined the Methodist Church. We went to a revival meeting one night, and he went to the altar and prayed. On the way home, when we joined the church, I said, do you feel any different, George? And he'd say, no, I don't feel any different. And I'd say, oh, to myself, I'd say, oh, it didn't happen then, because I knew in my heart he'd feel different. If God did what I thought he could do, he'd feel different. And so that didn't happen when we joined the church. But that night after we left the revival meeting, and he had testified that if there was anything to this religion stuff, he'd like to have a little bit of it. And so on the way home, I snuggled up to him in the back seat. We had ridden with our friends, and I said, do you feel any different, honey? No, I don't feel any different. And I thought, oh dear, it didn't happen again. And it should have, because it was in the right atmosphere. Everything was right. And I knew it. And I knew something should have happened. We got in and then the next morning, it was on a Sunday night. We went to the revival. Monday morning, he got up and got his uniform on, because now he's in the guards and he had to go to training down in Ionia. And he had given his cigarettes to the preacher the night before, because he said the cigarettes might be a problem and his vocabulary wasn't very good. So the preacher said, I'll take the cigarettes and put them away for you and let God take care of your vocabulary. So he thought to himself, I'll just stop and get me a pack of cigarettes on my way to guard in Ionia. But he went on past the store, because when he went out to get in the car, he reached for the key to turn the engine on to start the car to go. And he thought to himself, I've done everything I know to be saved. I must be saved. And at that moment, a great witness of the Spirit came. Everything changed. Everything changed. It was the miracle of miracles that they say could happen. The things he once loved, he hated. The things he once hated, he now loved. Never reached for another cigarette. Never reached for another drink of alcohol.
I remember Dad, when he would give this testimony, would talk about looking out across the field, the wheat field. He would see the wheat bowing and worshiping God. And he could see the veins of the leaves that were way, way out in the field, that with the natural eye, you would not be able to see the underside, but he was able to see the underside of the leaves and the veins in the leaves. His old self was gone. And this is uh, Paul's epistle to the Romans, and this is a picture from his well-worn Bible, where it says the old man is crucified and the body of sin destroyed, that henceforth we should not serve sin. And from henceforth, Dad did not serve sin, and Dad did not pick up the bottle again. He used to say, and I always loved it, he used to say, I get my spirits out of a book, not out of a bottle.
Yeah.
And Mom, let's just talk for a minute just about, I'm going to ask you, how did this change you in your relationship to Dad? And how did it change you in your relationship to God?
Well, number one, I thought I really had it up to that point because I had come to know God when I was just maybe 4 years old. I knew that I needed to be on God's side. So I was kind of what you say, I was kind and what did I write down today that I did it my way. I knew um mostly kind and selectively obedient was my life
Share that.
up to
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah.
I I was mostly I wanted to be good. I really wanted to be good from the time I was 4 years old. I knew what I meant about being good. So now, what was it exactly that you wanted me? Because I could go off on a tangent right here.
Oh, well,
Yes,
I love your tangents, but of course we are limited, to, of course, by
we're
the clock.
limited.
Unfortunately, I wanted you to say, I know that. Let me say that after that, when you would go to services, what would happen
Yeah,
is that you would be usually asked to sing,
yeah.
and uh, I'm going to put my screen back up there because I have a nice photo
Oh,
here of a
oh,
favorites 7, because I wanted the picture to be that favorites 7 songbook coming out of a purse, because wherever we went to services, now we're back to the idea of camp meetings and revival meetings, Mother would be asked to sing. And as a youngster, you had the opportunity to go and be trained professionally as a singer, but you decided that you wanted to sing only for the Lord. So I'm glad that you made that decision, and I know lots of people across the United States are very glad that you made that decision. And Mother and her friend Janine sang wonderful, beautiful songs over the years and encouraged people in the Lord. Could we share one more story, Mom? First of all, I want to share this scripture. For thou hast uh, turned my mourning into dancing. Thou hast put off my sackcloth and girded me with gladness.
mm-hmm.
This is what happened to my mother and dad.
Yeah,
They went from a life of
mm-hmm.
suffering, and thank God they decided, young really in their marriage, even though they did go for about 3 years, they decided early on to give their lives to the Lord. That's a miracle. When the mourning is turned into dancing, that is a miracle. Our Messiah, Yeshua, specializes in miracles.
Yes,
Your mistake is his miracle. If you've made
yes,
mistakes, and who hasn't made mistakes?
mm-hmm.
Well, those mistakes are God's opportunities to turn them into miracles. Celebrate and look for his miracles every day. And
Amen.
I think that is something that Mother has really encouraged me over the last, well, really my whole life, but maybe I hear her more as I get older. I don't know, but I love what she says, to live in the moment and
Yeah,
to have eyes to see. We often share, don't we, Mother, about
yeah,
how God helps us to have the
yes,
eyes to see, and that he
yes,
then blesses us with even more, because he loves to be honored and recognized
mm-hmm.
for for who he is in us and through
Yes,
us.
Mhm.
So I think that the message tonight is, and I think we should close with this, but the message is that miracles are manifesting all around us.
Yes, that's what I was hoping you'd say.
They are. And
Yes.
it's when God gives us the eyes
Yes.
to see, and when we look and we say, I'm sitting in a home right now that's a miracle.
Yes.
My family is a miracle. God put our marriage back together.
Yes.
That wasn't
Yes.
something that I could do. God did that.
No.
God brought
Amen.
our sister back to our family, and
Yes.
down recently brought another member of our family back to
Yes.
our family. And the
Yes.
miracles go on and on. But we have the eyes to see that because we're living, again, we are living in the supernatural.
Yes.
So I want to encourage our listeners today to live supernaturally, live
Amen.
above the circumstances, live above the mistake, and let
Mhm.
any mistake be turned into a miracle. Thank you so much, Mother Joy, for your joy
Thank
and for
you for letting
sharing.
me be.
Oh, for sharing so much. I'm
It's
so
wonderful.
glad for the way that you shared, and
It was
for the you made it succinct, yet you really hit the high spots for us of what I wanted you to do. And I thank you so much for do that. And please don't hang up, because once we stop the recording, then we'll have an opportunity for folks to interact with us. Thank you
okay.
again for digging deeper with us this afternoon.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking me.
You're welcome.